Good evening, everyone. We're going to get in it tonight. Tonight is going to be so good. I'm excited for this. We want to talk about tonight the power of mercy. And we've called this Mercy Marriage. We've been talking over and over about what it looks like to have marriages and relationships that are saturated in mercy. And so tonight we're going to dive in and talk about the power of mercy. What is mercy and what does it do for us? And according to the scriptures, mercy, just think about this for a second. According to the scripture, mercy is the most powerful, life-changing opportunity given to mankind. Think about that. Mercy is the most powerful thing given to mankind where change is concerned. See, God has chosen on purpose to not use anger or manipulation or insinuation or sickness or fear or rudeness or bullying to change you. He has chosen on purpose not to use any of those things to change you. He's chosen to use mercy. How awesome is that? Like, have you ever just thought about that? God's idea for changing us as people to better us is not to bully us around. He doesn't cause disaster in your life. He doesn't push you around and throw sickness in front of you and try to create disaster in your life. That's not what he'll never do that to change you. He uses mercy. Isn't that a cool thought? Mercy is the number one thing that he'll use to change you. And I want to show you a scripture where this is concerned. Romans chapter 2, verses 3 through 5. Just listen to this scripture. It says, "Don't you see how wonderfully kind, tolerant, and patient God is with you? Does this mean nothing to you? Can't you see that his kindness is intended to turn you from your sin?" I love that thought for us as believers and for those who don't know God. We say this a lot around here, that God's been pursuing you with goodness. God's been chasing you down with kindness, because I think sometimes we think that God tries to corner us. He wants to get us in a corner or bully us or get us to a position where we can't move, and he finally won. And so we go, okay, you won. But he doesn't do that. He chases you down with his kindness. He chases you down with his goodness. Mercy is what he has chosen to use to cause us to turn from our sin. I like to think of it like this. When you finally realize how good he's been to you, it breaks you. And you go, God, you are so good to me that actually everything I have around me that's good is you. Peter did that when Jesus filled his boat full of fish, like millions of dollars of fish. He fell on his feet and said, "Leave me, I'm a sinner. I don't deserve to have you near me." Why? Because his goodness just revealed, you are awesome, and I'm not. Isn't that awesome? He uses mercy to turn us. And so what God does is he creates a place for our failures to be forgiven so that trust can be built with him again. See, a lot of times we don't know if we can trust him. We don't know if he's for our good. We don't know if he's mad at us. We don't know if he's happy with us. And so what God has done is he's created a platform of forgiveness and a platform of mercy for us to come up on so that we can begin to build this trust with him again. And we'll begin to ask him for help in our lives, and we'll begin to trust him where his word's concerned. And all of that is through this awesome platform of mercy. It's one of the greatest things we have in life is mercy. We have mercy from God. And so the same way God uses that for us and him in relationship, it's the same in our marriage. It's the same in our marriages and in our relationships, that mercy should create this place of forgiveness, but also this place of transparency that leads us to action and leads us to trust with one another. And so if we're wondering, how do we get trust? How do we get strength? How do we get a strong relationship and a strong bond in our marriages? It's going to be through this same platform that God uses, mercy and forgiveness. And so our challenge to you tonight is going to be to build a platform of mercy, a platform of forgiveness where trust and mercy can start to be built again. Does that sound good to anybody? It's called being naked in marriage. What it looks like to be naked in marriage. So grab your notebooks, get them ready, sit back, relax. Roll film, Chan.
Always be honest with each other. Secrets and lies are the enemies of intimacy. And a verse that we have that goes directly with this is Genesis 2:25. It says, Adam and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. And you know, when we read this verse, for those of you who heard naked and you're with us for the first time, welcome back.
Yeah, you said naked and half the guys like perked up. They're like, what? Yeah. Where? You know,
okay. We're glad you're here.
It's a great Bible verse.
It is. You know, we love hearing the word naked. Being naked and being married is awesome, right? And of course, they're talking about the physical nakedness there. But we believe, you know, when God was talking about this, when he was designing marriage, and he said they were both naked and felt no shame, he's talking about them being naked on a spiritual level as well. Having what we like to refer to as a naked marriage, where there are no lies between them. There are no secrets. There's no hidden bank accounts. There's no secret cell phones. There's no friends on Facebook they don't want their spouse to know about. There's nothing that we hide from our spouse. Because when we do this, we don't have the kind of marriage that God wants us to have.
Yeah, the level of your honesty is always going to determine the level of your intimacy in marriage. Mm-hmm. And the moment you find yourself keeping secrets from your spouse, then you're already outside the bounds of that covenant that God created. Your marriage is no longer naked. I think God intentionally painted the picture of that first marriage before there was sin, before there was anything getting in the way. And he told us they were naked, not just to paint the picture of the importance of physical intimacy in marriage, but to paint the picture, as Ashley said, of being naked emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Right. Nakedness is a picture of saying, I've got nothing to hide from you. There's nothing up my sleeve. I'm not even wearing sleeves. There's nothing that I'm hiding from you. And so if you want your marriage to go to that next level, then take what we call the secret-free guarantee. It's saying, I'm not going to keep anything from you, and there's no question that's off limits. You can ask me anything, and I want to do my best to give you an honest response. You can ask me anything. And the first time that I start stepping out of bounds and making a purchase that I don't want you to find out about, or having a conversation that I hope you don't find out about, then I'm going to recognize I'm out of bounds, and I'm going to confess that, and I'm going to fight for trust in our marriage. Because there's going to come times in your marriage when you are struggling. And many of us in this room are struggling right now. Maybe you're not necessarily struggling in your relationship with each other, but you're struggling in some part of your life. I mean, we live in a broken world that has a lot of struggles. I mean, Jesus never promised us a life without struggles. He just promised that we would never face them alone. He said, never will I leave you or forsake you. But he also said, in this life, you will have troubles. He wanted us to be ready. And in marriage, we have the opportunity to face those troubles and those struggles together in partnership. And sadly, we see so many couples who kind of look at their issues as those are my problems, those are her problems, and we face them individually. Mm-hmm. And that's not what marriage is. It has to be unified, that we're going to face this together. And it leads to this final principle.
That's right. Number 3 says, never let your spouse face a struggle without your full partnership, encouragement, and support. And a verse that goes along with this is Galatians 6:2. It says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. And Dave and I are no stranger to struggles. And we like to really talk about this when we go to conferences, because we want you all to know that you're not looking at a couple up here that's never had a reason to divorce or a reason to have, a communication breakdown. We've had some struggles of our own. And one in particular that I want to share with you is when I went through a 4-year battle with anxiety and depression. And it started a little bit after we got married. And we were having a lot of trouble with some family members kind of infringing on our marriage, which is a whole other issue that could have a whole other talk. But it ended up lingering with me, and I was just dealing with anxiety and depression. And it was like those commercials you see for medication for these things, where it has like a little person with a cloud over their head, and it's raining, and it's like this dark cloud, and it's following them around wherever they go. And that's exactly what it feels like. It was like this heaviness over me that I couldn't shake off. And there were days where I had trouble breathing. It felt like something was sitting on my chest, and I couldn't even figure out exactly what it was that was causing me to be so sad or so anxious, but it got bigger and bigger. And I would pray about it, and I wouldn't feel the release necessarily. I mean, God would get me through the day, as he always does, as our sustainer, but I just could not shake it off. And I finally was very real with Dave about it. I mean, I'm sure he could sense that something was wrong with me. And there would be nights where I couldn't sleep, where I would wake up and feel physically ill and I'd run to the bathroom. And my mind would just be spinning with lies because that's what Satan does when he's trying to mess with us. And he sure did a number on me. He would tell me things like, Dave's gonna leave you because you probably did something wrong to feel this way anyway. And you're damaged goods now. I mean, you're not even the woman you used to be. You know, you're not fun anymore. He doesn't feel like he married the same, you know, that his wife is there anymore, so he's probably gonna leave you. And you know, you're a terrible mother. You're a terrible mother to feel this way. How dare you even let this depression and anxiety get into your life? Oh, and you know what? You must not be a strong Christian, because no strong Christian would have anxiety or depression if they really believed. I had all these thoughts weighing on me day in, day out. And there would be nights where I would wake up and I just knew that I needed prayer. And I would wake Dave up sometimes like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and every time I woke him up, when I know he was exhausted, I know he had to go to work really early in the morning, he never once said, you know what, Ashley, this has been going on long enough. You need to just put on your big girl pants and you need to handle this yourself. Or he never once said, you know, I'm just really tired of this. I'm exhausted. Can you just call somebody else, call your mom. Maybe she can pray with you. He never once said, you know, this is really your problem. It's not really mine. You know, I've told you everything I can tell you, so you just need to handle this on your own. Never once, not one time. And I woke him up a lot, believe me, I woke him up a whole lot. Every time I woke him up and I asked him for prayer, he would grab my hand, he would pray with me as long as it took. And these were sometimes some long prayers and prayers full of tears from me and a heart racing just because I could not get relief. And Dave would pray with me and I would feel the relief come over me. And then I would sometimes say, you know, sweetie, I just so appreciate your prayers, and I understand if you want to leave me, because I would have those lies. I would have those lies in my mind. And every time he would look me straight in the face and he would say, I love you more today than I have ever loved you, even on the day that I married you, and I am staying with you. I am never leaving your side. And he would say that to me every time. And you all, if it wasn't for God sustaining me through that time, and for a husband who prayed with me time and time again and was with me in my corner, and then eventually he helped me take the steps necessary to get some really good Christian counseling. If it wasn't for all of that, I would not be standing here today. It looked very bleak for me. I felt very alone before I shared it with my husband and let him come into this dark place with me and be my partner. But when I did that, everything started to change. And I'm just so thankful. I share this story because I'm so thankful that Dave was there for me, because I do see so many couples who are struggling, where maybe one couple is dealing with depression or cancer or a really bad work situation. And I see them struggling alone, and I see their partner feeling like they can't do anything. But let me tell you this, you may not be a counselor. Maybe you don't know the answers, but the best thing you can do for them is get in their corner with them in that dark place and stay by their side till you're able to both walk into that light out of that dark corner. And you will be so glad that you did. And so just be there for each other. We have to be there for each other because we will face struggles, like Dave said. So we have to face them hand in hand.
You have to face them hand in hand. And you can't always pick your struggles, but here's what you need to remember. Every struggle in your marriage, every struggle in your life is going to become a story someday. Mm-hmm. It's either going to be a story about how you got stronger, how you leaned on each other, how you grew in your faith, and how you came out stronger on the other side, or it's going to be a story about why you gave up. You don't get to pick your struggles most of the time, but you get to pick which story becomes true.
That's true.
And you need to lean on each other. You need to work together. You know, the picture, the visual that helps us is to think about marriage as if it was a bird, and a husband and wife are like two wings on that same bird, both submitting to Christ's headship. And of course, there are times where the husband is called to lead. That's a beautiful and a completely separate talk. But in this picture, talking about struggles, I want you to picture marriage. Christ is the head. The husband and wife are each a wing on this bird. Have you ever tried to see a bird fly using only one wing? When one of those wings is broken, it's sad to watch because nothing happens. It doesn't get off the ground. It just spins in circles. And a lot of marriages look that way. Mm-hmm. Because it's one spouse trying to get things moving and the other one refusing to participate for whatever reason. You've got to be strong for each other. And Ashley has so wisely said that a strong marriage rarely has two strong people at the same time. It's usually one spouse being strong for the other in the moments when that other spouse needs it most. She's been strong for me so many times. That was one example that I was strong for her, and she was dealing with something that she didn't cause. She's been strong for me and helped me in things that are the result of my own bad choices. And just for a very few minutes, I want to talk to you about a subject that might be awkward as we kind of prepared it to end, because this subject, as we work with married couples, we've seen that it is just so rampant, and yet it's not talked about nearly enough considering how widespread the problem is. And I'm talking about pornography. You know, I was one of the 95% of United States children that were exposed to pornography before my 18th birthday. 95%, that's 19 out of 20 of your kids and our kids before they turn 18 will see hardcore pornography. Whether they were looking for it or not, it's everywhere. It was implanted in my mind at a young age. Even though I was a Christian young guy, I knew what Jesus taught about lust. I knew that he said to look at a woman lustfully is to commit adultery in your heart. I knew that Ephesians said there shouldn't be a hint of sexual immorality among you. And so by my willpower alone, I tried to stay away. I didn't do what the Bible says to do when you're caught up in a sin. I didn't confess it. I didn't seek accountability or help. I just thought, I'm going to deal with this on my own. But the Bible never calls us to deal with our sin on our own. And that's where Satan really gets us, when we isolate ourselves, because then we start believing the lies. And I started believing some lies about porn as a young man. I believed one lie that said it doesn't really matter, it doesn't hurt anybody, it's nobody's business. And then I believed a lie on the other extreme that said this is unforgivable. If anyone ever found out about this, you'd be ruined, no one would ever respect you, no one would ever marry you. And then I believed a third lie. And maybe it was the most dangerous one of all, because it helped me to justify the sin. It said, maybe this is a struggle right now, but it won't be forever, because one day you'll be married and you will never be tempted again. I will never feel lust again. A Victoria's Secret ad could come on and I would be disgusted. You know, I would just never feel any kind of lust, and my eyes would never wander. And so when we got together, porn had not been an issue for a while. I thought it was just something from my past. And so I made the mistake of keeping it a secret. I never told her it had been a struggle. I never asked for her accountability in that. We got married, me still carrying that secret that this is something that I'd struggled with. And things were fine. But then about a year into our marriage, about 15 years ago, that temptation came back out of nowhere. And all those images, those terrible images that I had filed away in my mind, started replaying. And that temptation came on so strong that I fell right back into that terrible pit of sin. And now I'm a married man committing what I know, for what the Bible teaches, is an act of infidelity, no matter how I want to spin it. And I felt shame and I felt fear, and I thought she can never find out, she can never know. And so I hid it from her. And I tried to stay away, but I would slip up and I would fall back into it. And I wish I could tell you that I had the courage to just finally confess it, but I had to get caught. You know, she ultimately found on the computer where I had been, and she was heartbroken, not only because of what I'd been looking at, but because of this secret, this dishonesty that was in our marriage, that wounded the trust in our marriage. And to make a long story short, you know, she chose to respond with grace, still grace, but accountability, because forgiveness and trust are two different things. You can forgive someone instantly because forgiveness cannot be earned. God gives it freely and we must give it freely to others, but trust cannot be given, it can only be earned. You don't have to trust someone in order to forgive them, but you have to forgive in order to make trust possible again. And she chose to forgive, and she chose to allow me the ability to start rebuilding that trust. She encouraged me along the way. She didn't hold this over my head. She didn't use it as ammunition in arguments later on, but she responded with such love and with such grace. And over time, you know, by putting, you know, accountability in place, and with her love and support and the way she responded, we worked through that, came out stronger on the other side. I'm thankful to say that it's been years since that's been an issue. But now as we work with couples, we work with ministries like XXXchurch.com, we see that this problem is even more rampant, and it's getting our kids younger and younger and younger. And I say all this to say, don't let this be a secret in your home. You need to be actively talking about it, actively protecting your kids from it, and actively, if this is a struggle for you, as it is for many in this room and many who are watching right now, to be honest about it, to admit that it's a sin, and to seek the forgiveness that Christ brings, to seek the forgiveness of your spouse, and then to move forward with total transparency, as you should have in all different places of your marriage. And that transparency, man, it helps. Now we have a marriage of total transparency, and it's so much better than trying to keep secrets. Because secrets are exhausting, aren't they?
They are, and I think we tell ourselves, oh, this is going to hurt her so much, or this is going to hurt him so much. But the bottom line is that is a lie from Satan, because he's wanting to keep you all disconnected and from having the marriage that God wants you to have. Because when we bring that truth to light, that's where God does all of his healing, right? Because we've got to admit it, then we have to repent, and then we have to do what it takes, like Dave said, to rebuild that trust. Dave always says, a hard truth is so much better than a hidden lie. And so if you are hearing some of these things today, and maybe it's not pornography, but anything that you're going through, anything, maybe you're experiencing anxiety and depression and you've never really talked about it with your spouse, or there's something else going on at work, any kind of struggle that you're facing, I just challenge you, talk to your spouse about it today. You will be so glad that you did. You want to bring them into your life. Don't be leading these separate lives, but being in the same house. You're missing the entire point of marriage. And you're really keeping your spouse from really helping you. I truly believe that we can be each other's best helpers. Like I shared with you all, during that time of anxiety and depression, Dave was just such a strong person in my life, and I knew I could always go to him. And when you have that person that you can lean on, you're able to heal so much faster. And so if you did hear something today that makes you feel like we need to have a conversation, I truly believe that's God prompting your heart. And I would say have it sooner rather than later. Don't wait. Do it tonight. Do it whenever you guys have a break at this conference and have that conversation. And I also want to challenge the person who's hearing maybe the hard truth. Please listen. Don't interrupt them. Let them get it all out. Don't yell. You may feel very hurt and you may have every right to be upset, but just hear them out and then tell them how you feel in a productive way, and then talk about what you're going to do to get this healed, to help this problem, and to work on it together. And Dave, I think you may have already said this, but I'll just repeat it again. The couples with the strongest marriages, with the happiest marriages, they aren't the ones that never had a reason to give up. They're the ones who just refused to give up through it. They refused, and they kept on going, and they kept on going, and they chose for their story to be one of victory, to be one of coming through the hard times out the other side, one where God was at the center of it all, even in the midst of something that you thought, I don't know if we're going to make it through this. When you come together and you lean on God together and you refuse to give up, he can do the miraculous, and we see it every day. He's still in the business of raising dead things and bringing them back to life, and he does that not only with people and with sickness. He does it with marriages. He does it with marriages. And so if your marriage is struggling, I don't think it's any accident that you're here. And it's just my hope and prayer that you will hear something and you will let it seep into your heart, and you will know that God wants you to stick it out, and that you have something amazing on the other side of this that you really can't even see right now. But it's something that only God can do. And he wants to do it for you in your marriage today.
Oh man, good stuff. So tonight we want to dive right in. We want to talk about secret-free, honesty, and then mercy moves me. That's what we're going to dive in tonight, and then we'll be on our way. Secret-free, honesty, and mercy moves me.
So the question is, how naked is your marriage? Not talking about us physically, but all the things, even the little things. And again, a lot of what we'll be talking about tonight is the little things. It's not usually one big thing, but a compound of little things. So how naked is your marriage? And a secret is the first step to disconnecting from your spouse. And it's just that little thing, and it's just this little disconnection that you might not realize is a big thing, but it leads to something big.
Right. It just now dawned on me how heavy we're diving in tonight. And so you might be squirming tonight, and I honor you for being here. And this might be a tough night, and this might lead to some serious conversations and not so fun settings at home. But we're with you in this, and we're going to ask God to be all over this tonight. But we realize we're diving into some pretty heavy things tonight, but it's on purpose. And like Jayme asked, how naked is your marriage? That's a heavy question. Like, man, is our marriage wide open, or are there things hidden in the back? Because secrets and lies, they're the enemies to intimacy. And intimacy, like we've talked about, is that flame that's inside of us. It's that flame inside of our marriage. I've said this the other day, that intimacy leads to the bedroom, right? Intimacy is not what happens in the bedroom. It's what leads to the bedroom. It's that life-giving thing inside of your relationship. Well, secrets and lies are enemies to intimacy. No matter how little they are, doesn't matter what they look like, they are actually enemies to real intimacy. And so think of it like this, if you would, that intimacy is like a hot coal or a set of hot coals, right? If intimacy was in your marriage, it would be these hot coals that are just burning and vibrant. That's intimacy. And secrets and lies are like spraying water on those coals. Every time you choose to hide something or have a secret from your spouse, you're just spraying on those coals. And it might seem really little and it might seem really subtle, like, it's not really a big deal. But enough of those spraying on those coals, it's going to go out. It's going to go out. And that's the danger of it. And that's why we're kind of just laying it out there tonight and wanting to expose the danger of those little things that can seem so insignificant. And see, here's the thing. They're like internal poison. You don't see it so much on the outside. She might not see it in me if I'm holding something from her, hiding something from her. She might not be able to pin me on it. But inside, it's internal poison. And here's what it poisons, is transparency. It poisons the ability to be real, to be wide open, to be raw. It starts to poison that. And little by little, you'll start to lose that transparency inside of communication. And that's where it starts to get dangerous.
So here's a scripture, Genesis 4:7 says, "If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." And so I would just say we have the opportunity to rule over sin, or it is going to rule over us. And so even starting tonight, you have the opportunity to rule over anything that's going on in the secret. And if you don't, there's an opportunity, or it could rule over you eventually.
Right.
And so sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you. It wants to destroy you. It wants to destroy your relationship, and it wants to destroy your family. But we're not going to let that happen. Amen?
Right.
Your spouse would much rather hear the truth from you rather than finding it out on his or her own or from somebody else. And so, again, I would just take this opportunity tonight or soon to expose some things. If there's some things that are hidden, to take that opportunity to be a bigger person and care enough about your spouse and about your future to come clean in areas that need to be cleaned in. I imagine if you're a lot like me, you can handle a hard truth. Like, I would much rather know the truth and deal with it than, like Ashley was saying, sometimes people hold the truth back because they don't want to hurt their spouse, but that's the lie. And I think we can all handle a hard truth, but you just have to be willing to go there.
Right, that's good. And so here's a question. What could you do today to have a relationship that's secret-free? That's a heavy question, isn't it? What steps could you start taking today? What are some things you could do today that would have a relationship that's secret-free? And if that feels like miles away, I understand that. And I'm with you in taking small steps. Like, please don't leave here tonight defeated or conquered, like, oh my goodness, I don't want anything to do with that idea. Because what's on the other end of that is awesome. And so what steps today could you start taking that would allow you to have a marriage that's secret-free? And you might have to have that hard conversation that they're talking about. That might be what's the next step. That, all right, we've got a pretty serious conversation to have. But that's okay. I believe God will help you in that and give you grace to go through that. And I just want to talk a little bit about this because, when Jayme and I got married, we both had a past. We had some BC days before Christ that neither of us were proud of. But we met each other as believers. And so we didn't drag our past into our marriage. Because for us, we said, if Jesus forgave us for that, why in the world would we bring that into our marriage, erect it, and have something that we have to deal with as a couple that God's already forgiven? And so when we talk about secret free, I'm not saying go back to the old treasure chest, find everything you possibly can that's ever happened in your life. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about digging up all the bones, because that's just too much. But if there is some stuff after you've been a believer, and if there is some stuff after you've said, I do, that needs to be talked about, those are the things we're talking about. Those are the kind of things that we're saying, put on the table in a healthy setting and talk about those. And if there's, I know we're in really touchy areas tonight, but I want to be as clear as I can. If there's areas in your life where you've been violated or you've been abused, that might be something you don't talk about, but that might be something you do put on the table. And my encouragement to you in that area would be, it depends how healthy you are from that. If you've been violated or abused in your past and you've come through that and you feel like you got your feet under you, and yeah, I'm good with that. Well, maybe that is something you just want to share or lay on the table, or maybe not. But if there's something in your past where you've been violated or abused and it is eating you up, like it's still messing with your ability to make decisions and be intimate with your spouse and relate in a healthy way, then it is something that you're going to have to throw on the table and say, I need a lot of help. And let them stand beside you in that place and walk with you through that, whether that's helping you with counseling or prayer or whatever that is. And so when I talk about that, I know it's a very sensitive area, but I don't want you to get the fact or the idea that we got to go home and drag everything up that we can ever think of. That's not what we're saying. Does everyone get that? Everyone get that? I don't want to keep beating that into the ground. And so we know we're in really touchy areas, but the challenge is, what would it look like for us tonight to have relationships that are secret free? And listen, if that scares you, if you're like, oh no, please just be quiet, I've heard enough already, I'm gonna shake you a little bit. You don't know what you're missing. If you think you want to stay in that place with secrets, you don't know what you're missing on the other side of having a secret free marriage. All right, let's move into honesty. Honesty. So we can have secret-free marriages. We can have a place where we're wide open and there's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide. But then what is honesty? What does it mean to be honest? I love honesty because honesty supports intimacy. If you could think of it like pillars or a foundation or that safety net under the crazy guy at the circus that wants to walk across the tightrope, right? Honesty is what supports intimacy. It's the support to intimacy. And so if we have honesty, then we'll have this support to intimacy. And so here's another hard question for you. How would you gauge the level of honesty in your relationship? How would you gauge that? If you were just to take a quick gauge, what does honesty look like in our relationship? How would you gauge that in your relationship tonight?
Yeah, like, am I honest? Do I feel like an honest person? Is there something when you're hearing us talk or hearing them talk where you're like, yeah, that's it. I have not said that yet, or I haven't came clean in this area, then that's probably the thing. And like you said, I would just encourage you to clear your conscience, like find freedom in that area, because freedom is awesome. And like you said, the other side will be better than where you are right now hiding it.
Right. And so this is interesting about honesty. I just kind of want to dig into this a little bit and look at the word. Honesty means this. It means freedom from deceit and freedom from misleading. Seems pretty simple. Oh, well, yeah, it's a common sense definition. But here's what's really cool about this thought. If I'm an honest person and you come to me with something, I can go right to the root with you about that situation. If I'm not an honest person, then I'm misleading, which means this. When you come and bring something to me, or when I'm on the carpet, I mislead. I point in a different direction. I quickly try to veer away from the root. That's dishonesty. It's misleading. I point somewhere else. Your spouse comes to you and asks a question. Did so-and-so, is this right? Or is this really what happened? And you point in a different, well, you just back off me. All you ever do is just come at me and you're misleading. I'm pointing away from the situation. It's a smoke screen. I got to try to put something up because I don't want the root to be revealed. I don't know how to be honest. And this is interesting, but things like anger, rage, even laughter, even joking, and always trying to have a sense of, or be humorous, are smoke screens to the real root. And we don't even know that sometimes. And so if someone comes and puts you on the spot and you immediately just show rage, you do that because you're trying to get out of the root. You're trying to get away from the real situation. It's misleading. But honesty is when I have freedom from that. I have freedom from the desire to mislead, and I can go right to the root with you. As bad as it stinks and as much as not fun as it's going to be, I'll go there with you. Isn't that interesting? And so, those things like anger or blame or defend or laughter even, just joking, always making a joke, it ain't no big deal. No, it's a smoke screen. You're smoke screen, and you're trying to get away from what's really happening. And what we want to do is be people who can go right to the root with our spouse, who can go there. We're honest people. We don't try to mislead. And so it's freedom from the temptation to point off in a different direction, to try to get the conversation to go away from what's really happening. And here's the thing, is dishonesty wounds trust. Dishonesty will wound that trust. And we don't want that in our relationships. We want to have solid, trustful relationships. I love this thought. Honesty is the best way to prevent a mistake from turning into a failure. Honesty is the best way to let a mistake turn into a failure. See, when I mess up and I get honest about it, that won't be a failure because we walked out of it. But when I mess up and I keep it or I hide it, now it turns into a failure. I blew it. It's a mark on me. It's something that has scarred me. It becomes a failure. And so I love this thought with mercy marriage, is that mercy inside of relationship creates a platform for honesty. Why is mercy important? What does mercy do? It creates a platform for honesty. Mercy should create a safe place for me to be honest. See, if I know Jayme's going to be merciful toward me, then when she approaches me with something, I can respond in honesty. I don't have to mislead. I don't have to try to weasel out of it. There's a platform for me to be completely honest because I know I'm going to have mercy reciprocated to me. It's not going to be demeaning and, oh, there you go again, or, oh, you're this and you're that. No, mercy builds this platform for honesty inside of our relationships, and that's why it's so important.
So this is kind of a heavier topic. I want to just share something funny, something silly, a little story that happened to us. Like I said, it's a lot of little things, right? So years ago, I went to visit my sister and Jason in Aberdeen, and I came home from that weekend, and I come into the living room. There's like a BB gun sitting behind our couch, between the couch and the window. And it's the first thing I noticed, like, why is there a BB gun sitting out there? And he's like, I don't want to tell you. I'm like, okay, like, why not? He's like, because you don't want to know. He's like, it's just better that you don't know. I'm like, no, like, it made zero sense to me. Why is there a BB gun sitting here? And he's like, well, we had this mouse problem in our house at the time, okay? So the little mouse runs across the floor, and instead of like getting a mouse trap, which would seem normal, he gets a BB gun, shoots the mouse on the carpet, and then there's like blood on the carpet. And so I'm like, you didn't do that? Like, really, you didn't? And I was like, did you clean the blood up? He's like, oh, there's no blood there. And I go over, and there's blood laying on the carpet. So, funny story, but just a little thing, like just something he just didn't want to share, didn't want to tell me. And the truth always has to come out. He left the BB gun out.
Yeah, she totally caught me on that one. And like this was right early when we got married. And so when we first got married, Jayme was like a germ freak, like freaked her out. She hated stuff like that. And so like she seriously thought of going to a motel often because of the mice situation in our house. And it was just like, cool down. Like, I think you'd be cool with that now. You'd probably cheer me on.
I would be cool with it. I could handle it a lot better than I could back then, but I wouldn't be cool with it.
It was the best shot ever. I smoked him. I was so proud of myself. Oh, yeah. But it was interesting, like you're saying, early on in our marriage, I knew that she would think that was absolutely disgusting. I knew it was going to turn into this. Why would you do that? And in feelings like interrogation. And I seriously struggled being honest with that. I was seriously trying to lie my way out of that situation. Like, yeah, I don't know why. Because you don't understand the power of honesty. Don't know yet if there's a platform of mercy built inside of our marriage. See, that platform gives us a place to be honest. And so, what does the gauge of honesty look like in your marriage? How honest are you? Or maybe this is a better question. How honest do you feel you can be with your spouse? And I'd say this, if you don't feel like you can be, have that conversation. Have that conversation. Like, don't start with, well, you should be honest with me because they said that, and that's what we have to do if we want to have a good marriage, and if you want to ruin our marriage, then you're going to be dishonest. No, go have the conversation. Well, why don't you feel like you could be completely honest with me? And here's the interesting thing about honesty, is that if you want honesty in your relationship, then you got to be willing to hear it. You got to set yourself up to hear it. Like, does this make me look fat? Yes. You're rude. You are the rude. You asked. No one gets that question. That's like the worst question in the world. Here's a really good some help for you. Never tell your wife that makes them look good. Tell them they make that look good. That's really helpful. You make that dress look good. It's really helpful. But no, if you want honesty, on a more serious note, if you want honesty, then be ready to hear it. We all have to position ourselves to be able to handle honesty. That's how we're going to have it in our relationships, if we can set ourselves up to handle it, where no matter what you have to say to me, I'm going to position myself to hear it. Why? Because our marriage is worth it. Our relationship's worth it. So I'm going to be willing to hear it. And next, mercy moves me. So we have a secret-free marriage. We hopefully have a platform of mercy where we can be honest and have honesty and know that if I jump up on that platform, you're not going to eat my lunch, but you're going to stand with me and you're going to see me through it. And you are the one place where I have strength and transparency and the one who's going to see me to the end. And then mercy moves me. What does mercy do? Mercy should move me. See, mercy is the one thing that gives you permission to change. Mercy is that one thing in life that gives you the ultimate permission to change. That now I have permission to make a shift and change what I'm doing.
So mercy isn't a pass to stay where you are. And I think sometimes that gets twisted. Like, well, you have to forgive me. You have to give me mercy. You have to. But if I get mercy, I better move. I can't stay where I am in this little trap forever. And so it's not a pass to stay. It's an encouragement to get your butt out of there, get with your spouse, and run together.
Yeah. I like that thought. Just like mercy with God is intended to draw us back to him, like we learned early on, that when God shows us mercy, it's a drawing card. He's saying, come back to me. I want you near me. I'm going to show you mercy so that you'll come back to me. Well, it's the same thing in relationship. Mercy should draw you back to your spouse. Mercy moves you in that it should draw you back to your spouse. That's the coolest thing about it. Mercy draws me to my spouse. It never pushes me away. It draws me back to them, just like it does with the Lord. He gives us mercy to bring us back to him so that we can start to build something. And so it moves you to your spouse. I love that thought because it's to get me out of the me seat and back into the we seat. It pulls us back together. I hope you're getting this tonight. This is why we want relationships that are completely saturated in mercy, because mercy pulls us back together. Mercy brings us back to each other. And so there's two factors in mercy that I just want to touch real quick. One is to be merciful. The first part of mercy is to be merciful, which means if I'll choose to be merciful, if I'll choose to be that person who will show mercy, then I can create a secret-free, honest environment because I'm going to be merciful. I have made up in my mind that I will show you mercy. Which means now I'm opening up the door for us to have a secret-free, honest relationship. See, the thing that causes dishonesty is the fear of judgment. But if I will show you mercy, then I create that environment. And the second part of mercy is this, that when you get it, move. Move. Mercy should be like a fire underneath of you. Get moving. See, some of you might be dealing with a spouse in here tonight where you feel like you don't know how many times I've given them mercy. I feel like I've shown them mercy over and over and over, and the last thing I want to do is show them mercy one more time. I want to slap them in the back of the head with the frying pan and be done with this thing, right? Some of you might feel like that in here. And so I'm telling you in here that have been getting mercy over and over and over, mercy moves you. Mercy means get moving. And we laugh about this because there's times in our marriage where I know I need the mercy card, like, all right, I blew it. I'm the one that shot the mouse. Yeah, I blew it. It's me. I messed it up. I'm the one. And what that means is I'm going to move. When you give me mercy, it moves me. It means it's time to get up and get going. I want to share this scripture with you because I love this scripture where mercy is concerned. James 2:13 speaks right to this. Just listen to this. Because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who's not been merciful. Okay, none of us want that judgment. But mercy triumphs over judgment. Judgment will be given to those, merciless judgment will be given to those who refuse to show it. And so just think about this. If you're living a life where you don't show mercy, you're more on the justice side. You like to hold people hostage to what they've done. It feels good to you to just keep rubbing it in of what they have done. That same judgment will be shown to you. That's what this scripture is saying. But if we will be people who will show mercy, then when it comes time for you to get judged, you'll get mercy. You'll receive that same mercy. And here's why. Because mercy triumphs over judgment. And here's why I love this thought, because I think there's certain people in here, certain type people, that we just struggle with giving mercy. Like to us, it's like, no, I just don't feel like I can do that. Like I have to let them know where they're wrong. I have to keep helping them. I'm really helping them by showing them how dumb they are at times, right? None of you have to let me know that you're that person, but we feel that sometimes, like, no, they really, 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 really do need my help. They will run with scissors if I don't take care of them. But what happens is that gets us into a place of judgment and we don't even know it. And here's what I love about this scripture is mercy always wins over judgment. If you want to win, choose mercy. Yeah, but you don't know, but what about? The revenge is the Lord's. He can deal with that. He is way bigger than our situation and us. If we choose mercy, we win. If we choose judgment, there's a chance we will lose. But mercy always triumphs over judgment. And so if you've judged your spouse, then really what you've done is you have stamped them as something. You're this. You're just that. You always do this. Every time you do that, you are you, and you're stamping them as something. As simple as that sounds, it's judgment. It's judgment. It's not mercy. But mercy is what allows us to win.
So relationships that are saturated in mercy operate in forgiveness and in trust. Forgiveness can be freely given, and it can't be earned. Trust takes time because it is earned, and it is not freely given. So forgiveness, just like Jesus forgave us, it's given. It's just something that you do. You forgive, but trust is not an overnight thing, and trust is definitely going to take some time to earn back.
right? And I think that's where we kind of get backwards at times, is we're trying to get our spouse to earn our forgiveness. They don't earn it. Forgiveness, mercy, it's freely given. But trust is not freely given. Trust has to be earned. And if we don't understand the difference in those two, then we get mixed up in what we're trying to get. We get mixed up in what we're trying to create. We get mixed up in what we're looking for. Forgiveness is always freely given. Otherwise, it's for sale. No, it's for give, not for sale. Well, I want to see these behaviors out of you, and then I will forgive you. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is freely given. There you go. You're forgiven. But trust takes a lot of time because it has to be earned through time. And so showing mercy in our relationship is what allows your spouse to come back to you. I love that thought. When I choose to show mercy, it's the very thing that allows my spouse to come back to me. Here's where secrets come from. Secrets come from the fear of judgment. I don't want to tell them because I don't want them to judge me. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to think about me. I don't know how they're going to tear me down again. I don't know how they're going to eat my lunch one more time. And so secrets come from that fear of judgment. And so try to get this with me. If that fear of judgment's not there, but mercy is, then it creates an open, transparent relationship. Is this making sense tonight? Isn't that good? Mercy draws me back to my spouse. And so what mercy does is mercy moves you. And so it never enables you inside of selfishness. Like we fear giving mercy because we think we're going to enable them to stay where they're at. No, we need to realize that when we get shown mercy, we got to move. Mercy is not the opportunity to sit still in your selfishness and keep doing what you're doing for just a little longer because they're being really lenient with me. No, when I realize I'm getting mercy, I better get up and get moving because it's not to able me in selfishness. It actually creates this humble change in me. It sets me up to be humbled and go, I don't deserve this. I'm moving. I'm going to get moving. And so if we want to win inside of relationships, if we want a relationship that's winning, it needs to be saturated in mercy. Saturated with mercy. Here's what I love about this thought, is that when we realize that we're a team, then it can change our mindset. When we realize that we're together in this thing, and it's not this individual thing where I'm trying to win over here and she's trying to win over there, and sometimes we clash, and no, we're a team in this thing, then my mindset can be changed. And so take a situation, maybe you feel like the victim of your spouse's behavior, like it's just always, or their struggles. Well, imagine with me if you could change your mindset from I or me to we. If I could just make that shift. This is how we can operate in mercy. That rather than jumping to conclusions where everything you do wrong is now, I take it personally, because you're doing it to me, and poor me, and you're doing this to me, and you're making me feel this way. Imagine if we could change our mindset from me to we. Or rather than poor me, it could be, hey, how do we tackle this? How do we come together and hit this situation? And rather than it just be an I, it's we. Total change of mindset. And so rather than just thinking about, oh, poor me, we can think about, what about we? See, mercy allows us to say, what about we? How do we move forward with this? And I'm telling you guys, this is work because we're bent on leaning to me. We're bent on protecting me. And so immediately our first thought is, well, poor me. What are you doing to me? Why would you do this to me or say this to me? But when we decide to have mercy in our relationship and to saturate it with that, then now I move off of we before me. So I'd rather have this be right than me be right. That's mercy. And when we choose that, that's what creates platforms of honesty, secret-free relationships, where we are naked in marriage, where it leads to intimacy. Remember this: mercy wins over judgment. Always. There might be some of you in here tonight that just, you don't realize it, but you eat your spouse's lunch with your words. You nag them. You have little ideas of them that you vocalize. Like you're so clumsy. Got any clumsy folks in the house? You're so clumsy. You always do that. You always spill. You always burn that. And it's these judgments that we don't realize because it's just the world we live in. That you're just this, you're that, you're that. No, I'm not going to let you have that because you always that. And no, I better drive because you'll wreck the car. Or no, get out of that driver's seat because we know how you drive. And it seems like it's just these things, but what they are is judgments. They're judgments. They're stamps on people that are not mercy. And yeah, you might have to protect your family from one of your spouse's driving habits, but communicate that. But the danger that I'm trying to present is that we start stamping judgments on one another and we don't even realize it. And it might seem little in little things, but somewhere it's going to get big. And what that slowly creates is a relationship where we just judge one another and we don't know how to show each other mercy. And so when something happens or comes up, what I look for is a way to prove who you are as a person is what made it happen, rather than mercy going first. Not, oh, well, there you go again. Honestly, it doesn't even surprise me. It's mercy. Well, hey, what can we do to get out of that? What can we do to make that better? You know what? I'm going to be merciful enough to just never let you get behind the wheel again. Whatever that is. And so that danger is that we get little judgments. And here's why I'm hitting this, because mercy wins over judgment all the time. Even the things that seem little, even the things that seem subtle. You might feel like you're winning by making your point so clear, but I'm challenging you. Try mercy. Try mercy, you'll win. You'll win. Mercy wins. It is triumphant over judgment.
One thing I want to add, just in light of mercy and giving mercy, that should move. Sometimes it does. That person doesn't always move at the speed that you want them to, or doesn't always move right away. And depending on the nature of what's going on, it might take, if it's an addiction or something, it might take some time to get out of that. And so there is a time for mercy. But what we're not saying, and I just want to make this really clear about staying in an abusive relationship, if there's sexual abuse or physical abuse, any type of abuse, like we're not saying to put up with that or to stay there. And so I just want to throw that out there very clearly, to get out and to get help if that is something you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive topic. And really our heartbeat tonight is that you would start to practice these in the small things. Because like we've said this 100 times, if we'll learn to tackle the small things with the correct attitude and disposition, we'll knock the big things out of the park. We really will. The thing that happens is when we ignore the small things and we just kind of fight through them, then when something big shows up, it takes you out. And then it leaves scars in your relationship. You end up saying things you didn't mean to say that don't go away. You end up acting in ways you really didn't mean to act. And so it's in those little things. Find those little things and start showing as much mercy as you can. Choose triumphant, choose winning. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Your nature might be to just throw a judgment out real quick, but no, I'm going to do mercy instead. And just start practicing mercy in all these little small things, and you'll start to find yourself winning. And so, yeah, we're really trying to cover just kind of those small things tonight. But like Jayme said, if there's some big stuff, we want to help you in that as well. We want to walk with you in that, but there might be some things where you need to take some more serious action. We would never expect anyone to sit around and be abused or taking on some serious things, and our answer is not just, we'll just give them mercy. No. You got to make different kinds of moves. And so if you're the one that's messing up or you're the one that's struggling, let mercy move you out of me and back to we. That's my challenge for you tonight. If you're the one that you know I'm dogging it, my challenge to you is let mercy move you out of the me seat and into the we seat. If you're struggling with selfishness, if you're struggling in an area where you just choose me over we, you might have done that your whole marriage. Who knows? Start now. Let mercy be that driving force. Let mercy be that power that drives you out of the me seat and back into the we seat. Where you say, I want to do this with us. I want this to win, not just me anymore. Let it drive you out of that me seat. And so what can you do to embrace and learn to love honesty and secret-free, merciful relationships? That's a question for you tonight. What could you start today? What could you start tonight to embrace honesty in your life, in your marriage? That's an interesting question. Am I honest? Am I an honest person? Like when I get called on the carpet, like boom, right in the moment. Like, can I respond with honesty, or do I mislead? Do I point that way? And so what could you start tonight that would allow you to embrace honesty? And last but not least, my last encouragement to you tonight is this: refuse secrets and lies. Refuse them at all costs. Refuse secrets. Refuse lies. Because here's why. If you do, they will keep you next to your spouse. Closer than maybe you've ever experienced. And I don't know how else to vocalize it tonight. That what we're talking about tonight is not a little issue. What is on the other side of secrets and lies is maybe something you never even knew was possible. There's a relationship on the other side of that is awesome. It's strength. It's transparency. It's really that person you've been looking for and hoping for. It's the marriage that you hoped you would have had, right? Like our little card asked, is your marriage where you hoped it would be? Well, that's what gets it there. And the thing that makes it so hard is that it takes adults to have those conversations. And I think the funniest thing about marriage is it starts to confront the child in all of us, right? That's really what it deals with, is that little child in all of us. I remember one day I was minding my own business, just mowing my yard. That's it. I wasn't thinking about nothing. How many of you men got a nothing box? You guys got a nothing box? All right, just glad I'm not the only one. Whew, made me nervous for a second. I was just in the nothing box, just mowing, and I heard the Lord. And I wasn't even thinking about this. And the Lord said, Jason, marriage reveals who you really are. And I'm like, yes, it does. Because I knew that, because marriage had been confronting my childish behavior over and over. And it was just like the Lord went, there you go. It does. It reveals who you really are. And so what's on the other side of secrets and lies is this place that God has set up, that God has designed. And it's a transparent platform of mercy. Mercy. See, what I think about for us as couples and marriages and relationships is how awesome it would be to know mercy's always the response. Always. And when that's the case, then the thing that gets dealt with is your attitude, isn't it? It's our attitude. It's our attitude toward our spouse, and it's our attitude toward whatever's going on. And so I want to challenge you with that tonight. Refuse secrets and lies, because they'll keep you next to your spouse. And so how could you be better at being merciful? That's a good question. Anyone in here, I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but anyone here feel like that judgment person that you're just pretty good at putting labels on? Maybe you put labels on your spouse your whole marriage and didn't even realize it. You just labeled them. Oh my goodness, what did I marry? Label after label after label, right? But what would it look like to let mercy go first? What would it look like just to get good at just removing the label and going, yeah, you might have done that, but that's not what I'm going to call you, and that's not what I'm going to vocalize out loud that that's what you are, because you mean more to me than that little thing you do all the time. You mean more to me than the one that leaves the toothpaste cap off or can't hit the laundry basket with your underwear for some reason. I don't know why. You just can't get them in there, but you can't, or whatever that is that just can't lift the toilet seat ever. Whatever those things are, what would mercy look like? Like, you know what? You are the best at never lifting the toilet seat. I mean, you should get a reward. You should get a medal for that. There's a way to say, I'm not saying that about her. There's a different way to say it than that's not judgment. And so, here's what I love about this thought, is that we're going to fail. Like, we're just going to fail. If we're going to be married and we're going to be together every day of our lives, we are going to see some pretty embarrassing failures. Like, I remember one time I was running on the treadmill and I couldn't get my earphones in, and I'm downstairs. Do you remember? Yeah. I'm downstairs.
Preface it by saying he's really quick on his feet. He just is always thinking. He doesn't really do dumb things.
Yeah. It's not very often that I mess up like that. And she'll even tell me, I appreciate it. That's not you. But I'm running on the treadmill and I couldn't get my earbud in, and I'm like, it kept falling out and I was so annoyed by it. And so I looked away from the treadmill and I'm trying to get my thing in, and I just ate it like hardcore. I tripped and it slammed me into the wall. I mean, just boom. Well,
it was more like
and so I just jumped up real quick and started running again, just totally embarrassed. No one saw me, but totally embarrassed. And so I couldn't believe that just happened. And about 2 minutes later, she just slowly opens the door, kind of like, did that just happen like I thought it did? And I'm like, go away. We're good. We're going to fail. We're going to make some huge failures. We're going to break things. We're going to ruin things. You're going to fall through windows. You're going to scar up paint. You're going to break dishes. It's just going to happen. I remember I backed into her car with a skid steer one time, just demolished the whole side of it. And it's like, that makes you feel real cool. Real cool. And what do you get? What do you get in those moments? Are you going to point those moments out as, see, you're just proving what I've said about you from the beginning? Or are those your moments to triumph? And go, that's not who you are. That's not who you need to be. It's not a big deal. We'll get through it. We'll get over it. Like, mercy always triumphs over judgment. And I can't quit thinking about this, that when we live in a world that's always telling you what you're not, why can't we have relationships that'll tell you what you are? Even when you're bombing it, even when you're missing it, even when your failures are completely exposed. Let your relationships be saturated in mercy. Amen? Oh, it gets me fired up. And so, if you have fought to be right your whole life, how could you stop that in your marriage and start to fight to be a team? Like, maybe your whole life you're a person that has just fought to be right. Maybe it had something to do with how you grew up. Maybe it had something to do with childhood. Maybe it had something to do with being violated or abused or in a horrible situation, and it's caused you to fight for your right to be right because that's where you feel safe. It's when I'm right. When I'm right, I'm safe. When I'm right, I'm right. If you have fought your whole life to be right, what would it look like to just shift and choose to fight to be a team? that, you know what, being right really doesn't get me that far. But teaming up does. Being a team does. So those are just some challenges for you tonight. You got anything else?
Okay, one time I was at Sam's Club. I was leaving. This is mine, so I can say it. I was leaving Sam's Club. It was really snowy, windy, just like a really yucky kind of girls' day. And I totally was in the right spot, and this car comes and just blasts me hard. And sometimes in a parking lot, you don't really know, but it was like definitely this other person's fault, and just hit my car hard. But it was so cold and so windy. I just did not want to call the police. I didn't want to deal with it. She got out and she said, "I'm really sorry." And I was like, she said, "Do you want to call the police?" And I said, "Not really." And so I was too lazy. I didn't do it. I said, "It's fine. Let's just call it a day." And so I went home, and I think it was your car, actually. I don't know for sure the details of it. But I told him what happened, and he goes outside and looks, and he wiped all the snow and all the yuck and grit and stuff off. And he comes inside, and he's like, "I don't mean to pour salt on the wound, but he's like, this is bad. Like, this is really, really bad." And so even just that, it's like I was too lazy to do anything about it, and so our car was all messed up, but he was very merciful, and I was like, whatever, what do you do now?
Yeah. You're good. And so I got some questions here I'm just going to throw out that I think are really, really good. What's the first step to creating a secret-free marriage? What's the first step to creating a secret-free marriage? And my thought to that is, tell the truth. Start for the first time telling that truth, because that's the hardest step. If you're somebody that has secrets in your marriage, it means you've learned to do that. You've learned to get away with that. Like somehow you've learned that it works. And have that conversation where you finally just say it. You open up for that first time. I'd say that's the start to it, because that's what creates that momentum to keep it alive. And I would preface that conversation with, I'm going to need mercy. I'm going to need your mercy here. Because I think the strongest thing we've discovered in our marriage is when we set the atmosphere to win. We call them adult conversations. Hey, let's have an adult conversation, meaning neither of us have the right to leave offended. We do not leave this conversation offended. We only leave this conversation better. And so if you say something to me that hurts really, really bad, it's going to go here and I'm going to work on it. And I'm not leaving this place offended with it. It's for my good. And so it's setting up those atmospheres that, hey, we're about to go somewhere. Any thoughts on that? Just
like an offense can't be given. You can't give someone an offense. It can only be taken. And so, choose going into those situations. I'm not going to take offense. It might hurt. It might hurt really bad. And there might be some healing and some time and some healing that needs to take place. But you don't have to take an offense.
Yeah. That's good. And so start. That's my encouragement to you. It might be the first time you've ever done that. Starting a secret-free marriage. And I don't know how else to encourage you but to start, because you don't want to go any longer with those things deteriorating intimacy. Like, we don't ever want to get used to living on this half intimacy level where we're miles apart and we're used to it. Like, yeah, this is marriage, this is relationship. There's so much more to be had inside of relationship. What do you do when your spouse won't receive the truth from you? I think that comes out of something in the past. That you're not convinced your spouse is for your good. And it's probably from past conversations and hurts and judgments. Like, I'm just speaking I can only speak for my own situation, but when I finally realized, like, ding, the light came on that she's not trying to take me down. Like, that she's for my good. And because she's for my good, she can say some stuff to me that no one else will say or can say. Some hard truth. But when I finally realized that she's for my good, I could hear that truth. And so if you have a spouse that won't receive that truth from you, the first step might be just backing up and asking yourself, have I created that in any way? Have I created it in any way? And if you have, then maybe go back and ask for forgiveness. Hey, if I've hurt you with my words, if I've said things to you that have made you feel less than, I want to apologize because I'm here for your good. And I really do want to be able to bring some stuff to you that's truthful because I care about you. She said that to me many times because I care about what you look like in excellence and in things. I care about what your image looks like as a person and what you do with your hands and what you create. I care about that. And it's like, oh, like you got to get that. And then the other side, if that's something that you've already dealt with, I think it goes back to what Jayme Evans said. If you're speaking truth to your spouse, let God be the enforcer. Let God be the enforcer. Speak the truth in kindness, and then take it to the Lord and pray. And let him enforce that issue, not you. And you just leave it there. God, please speak to him or her in the way that you do. I trust you. And if it's the truth, God will move on it, and he'll either change you or he'll change them.
One more question that's here says, how do you create healthy accountability in your marriage? And I think this is a great question because healthy accountability can sometimes still look like you're badgering or you're pushing or you're digging or you're interrogating me or you don't trust me or all of the above, really. And if there has been any sort of infidelity in your marriage, I just want to say that everything should be open. Your phone, if you're on Facebook, I'm trying to think of some others.
Yeah, all passwords,
Yeah,
all emails.
like you're in this together, so everything should be open. There shouldn't be any secret, even in media and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Another one, but
no, it goes back to boundaries. And once again, it takes you out of the me seat and into the we seat. Like, you know, for example, things with Jayme and I, we have people that will reach out to us through media sites, and sometimes it's ministry. And if I ever minister to a woman over Facebook or something like that, even if they just message me, hey, do you have any thoughts about this or that? And I answer them, I will show her that answer. Hey, just so you know, I answered this person. And I'll show her that, like read that and look at it, because I want that wide open. It's all out there. And it's not even that it's anything wrong or off, but it's creating that platform that there's nothing hidden. Nothing. And there's no reason to have it hidden. Check that out. I want you to know that just happened. And she'll do that as well. Even if she has a conversation with a guy, she has a really good friend from high school that her and him are really close. And even if she'll have that conversation, she'll just come home and say, I just want you to know I talked to so-and-so at the store today, and he asked this and that. And it's just, it really doesn't even matter, but it's boundaries. It's just so you know, I don't want you to hear that from anyone else. I want you to hear it from me, because the platform is wide open. Our marriage is as naked as we can possibly get it.
I left Starbucks the other night, and this guy was leaving at the same time I was, and so it's him and I in this little entryway in Starbucks downtown. So he opens the door for me. I'm like, thanks. And we go to the stoplight together, and we're there at the stoplight together, and we're waiting for the light to turn. So we just kind of start talking. Well, then our cars are parked at the same place, so we're walking downtown together, and he kind of looks at me. He's like, so what do you got going on tonight? And it was so funny. And he was waiting for me in the car. But it was so funny because I thought if someone else just drove by, like that just looks so weird. And so even when we came walking up to the car, he just kind of was like looking at me, and I told the guy, oh, have a great night. I said, we're going to a marriage class tonight. And oh, okay. But from an outside perspective, that looks kind of weird. And so sometimes perception is more dangerous than reality. So sometimes the way a situation looks totally innocent, totally pure, but can look weird. And so I think it's good that's why we throw those things out there. And that's our boundary. That doesn't have to be yours, but I think it's healthy.
Yeah. And she's trying to be mayor anyway, so she talks to everybody in the community. All right, would you stand up with us tonight? Man, good stuff.